into the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
So creepy. I think it's creepy. Don't you?
Oh, no, it is.
I was surprised. Well, all right, everybody. We are here tonight, AFTERBUZZ TV. We are going to talk about The Man in the High Castle. It's Amazon's new show, and we're going to go over episode 1, The New World. I am your host, Courtney Henderson, and I am here with...
I'm Keith Black. You can find me on the internet or Twitter or anywhere social like that at Keith W. Black.
And hi guys, my name is Taylor Bolt. You can find me on Twitter at Taybolt, that's Tayboldt, or on Instagram at Tbolt, also Boldt.
We are everywhere. First, let's talk about the opening. I guess we kind of cut the music covered. Yeah. Surprising start with the...
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I was expecting sort of a, like, bombastic, Nazi-ish, like,
Agreed.
World War II big band sort of vibe. To start this off, and that's not what we got at all. We got this creepy, haunting version of Edelweiss.
You know, having watched the episode though now, it does kind of seem a little bit more appropriate.
Yeah, because it's like this. It's the world is very haunting,
right?
And I think it fits. I didn't like it at first. I even remember being like, I don't know, but it's grown on me even just since I saw it.
I think it's a little surprising. I think going into it, I was more expecting something along the lines of like an HBO style, like the Pacific Islands, where it's going to be more just dramatic. There's going to be Saving Private Ryan style of energy.
A lot of landscape
shots.
shots.
But it was just, it's very creepy and it's dark, and the way they shoot it, it seems almost more of like a documentary style in terms of it being more, you know, realistic and you're in the lives of these characters rather than, oh, this major world event happened, let's explain the event. Let's more explain the characters within the event, which I thought was super intriguing. And the open covers that through and through, you know, it's not some big epic animation like, you know, coming up like Game of Thrones.
Yes, which, like I said, going into it, I was the same way. I was like, what am I watching? What have I gotten myself into? But as I watched the episode and then got to the end of the first episode, I thought, okay, this actually is eerily suited for it. But moving on, so the tone, the lighting, I mean, just kind of the opening shots and kind of the beginning of the story with Joe. What were your initial impressions?
I mean, you immediately sort of get a vibe for the world. It's just like, it's super industrial. Like, I love that one of the first shots that you see is people welding stuff, because it's still that World War II steel mentality, like where it's kind of like, because it's kind of like the world never got to evolve out of that place with technology, as far as technology is concerned, at least.
I kind of felt like it looks more so like the Germans. I believe there was a line in there where the Japanese were surprised that, oh, well, we'll never be able to match the Germans when it comes to technology, which, as we know now, is, you know, completely fabricated in terms of reality.
Right.
Sure.
But it's nice to see that they took over and they stunted the growth of everybody and every culture around them, because their plane was able to get from New York to San Francisco in, what was it, 2 hours?
It was 2 hours,
And that's incredible. I would love that.
I know. Still, we don't have that.
There's some pilots that are like, maybe that's not so bad if they want, like,
no, I mean, I think that I'm sort of like a World War II, not like history buff. Like, I don't give me that much credit, but I'm fascinated with it. And it goes along like German technology was... Like, I mean, we were really competing with them for World War II. We being the U.S., I guess that's I could
clarify. A lot of countries and people.
I mean, a lot of countries were competing technologically, and it's like all of a sudden now Germany's technological growth wasn't stunted, and they used it to devastating effect. We learned that the Germans actually beat us to the hydrogen bomb, which was sort of, I think, what was the catalyst, or at least like the deciding factor for how this world was gonna play out. And I want to go back to the intro just for a second, because it's so cool. They have like this propagandist feel. But I was like, what's going on? Because it seems like sort of subversive. And again, like I was expecting like big sweeping landscape industrial shots, whatever. And we see the actual like breakup of what is now the United States of America, what was then the United States of America, and we see it's like the Japanese Pacific states, and it's just so cool to see that sort of separation. When I saw that, that's when it sunk in, and I was like, oh, this is a very different world than the one I'm used to.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the breakdown, because until I saw it visually on the Instagram for the show, it was kind of unclear, I'm like in my head trying to like figure this out. So the Greater Reich has 80 million people in it and goes like, it's hard to say, but like almost to Colorado area. Yeah. All the way to the East Coast.
It's like just the Rockies.
Yes, like that's
the
kind of like
states.
the break line. So, and then the Japanese, of course, they are on the Pacific coast, and they come in, it's like one state line is kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
They only have 50 million people.
They give them a sliver.
Yeah. And then like about the same size sliver in between the two is the neutral zone. Only 7 million people live in the neutral zone.
Which is incredible, but I don't think they didn't really give any like clues as to like the positive or negative aspects of being inside the neutral zone.
Yeah, that's what
they just called it.
What the neutral zone is.
Lawless. It's kind of all
like the Wild West.
Yeah, but then it's getting later into the episode, but the Bible situation, and it's just because it's not illegal doesn't make it legal kind of talk that they were doing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's go back. So Joe goes to this shipping
it looks like an
company,
import-export style,
and swears that he is not a punk and not a spy, and he's ready to get this mission done for Mr. Warren.
Yeah, and he brings them like the little business card that has the symbol on it that I didn't quite make out.
Yeah, it was Lariat Manager at 4112 East Montaka.
Anyone out there who wants to Google Maps that for us?
Go ahead and give us that exact pin.
That'd be great.
If it even exists.
Yeah,
whether it's a city that they've created in the future of the book.
I will have to check on that and get back to you guys.
So Mr. Warren, I don't know, it seems like he actually kind of went against his better judgment to give this guy, Joe, the benefit of the doubt to take the truck and go to the neutral zone to Cannon City.
Yeah.
But
why do you think he did it? Why do you think he trusted him?
I would like to think that it's because he mentioned, all of his friends are dead, all the people that he's fought in the war with and people that have been in resistance with him have since perished. And so when you get into a situation where you're trying to run a resistance on that side of the country and everybody that you know that you can trust is dead, I feel like he's been kind of backed into a corner where he gets this young, willing, seemingly healthy and strong person that seems to be part of the cause, saying he's like, well, what else? I have to get this out. Like, this needs to get out today.
Yeah.
What other choices have? There's not the four other guys saying, hey, I want to be in the resistance.
Yeah, and it's like, I'll pick you. You
I'm
look
looking
smart.
for a brunette. It's
not like casting where hundreds of people come looking for to play the part. So.
But I still think the vetting process was, don't you think one of you guys would have vetted the person a little bit more than, are you a spy?
I wonder too, though, because, of course, he gives him the keys and he sends him on his way, and then instantly, he doesn't even leave yet, and the Nazis have come in and taken control and are attacking Mr. Warren and the few people that are still left in the resistance. And I almost think
all of those people, that's what I was a little confused about. All of those, his factory workers were aware of his involvement. We got that vibe.
Seemingly,
I assumed.
I would say so, because they spoke in a pretty open area. It's not like he took him into a back office.
That's true.
And there's got to be, when these guys are making the stuff, somebody's got to load the truck. Like you said, Mr. Warren. It's not like he's got a lot of people left. So maybe these are guys that they're not willing to take the risk and go across the country. They've got families and things that. Somebody would notice if they were gone that long and it would become a thing.
Yeah. Right.
Which is maybe another reason why. But I almost feel like there was a sense of desperation that it was sort of like, I don't have a choice but to just trust that this guy is going to do what I need him to do.
Yeah. See, I think that as we learn more, because we eventually learn, not to skip ahead too much, but we eventually learn that what he's trying to really smuggle is this film canister that has what the grasshopper
lies heavy.
The grasshopper lies heavy, a film. And we learn what that is. We can talk about that in a little bit. But we figure out that this is what he's actually trying to smuggle, and it seems like he doesn't even know that. So I'm wondering what those film canisters represent, because to me, it seemed like the guy got sloppy, and honestly, that's why he took him on, because he didn't vet him. He didn't vet him enough. So I was thinking, okay, he's gotten sloppy. We figure out that the Germans knew that he was.
They knew he was the ringleader.
Yeah,
for like a month.
Yeah. So he's been sloppy. You know?
Yeah, minimally, yeah. At least for a month or so, he's made some mistake.
So I guess I'm wondering what the imperative was, because it seems like he did sort of just wave him in on a hope and a prayer, because he needed this done now for whatever reason.
Pushed him into a corner to get to that place.
Right. He had no one else to take it, and this just happened to fall in his lap, and he had to trust
and
it.
why couldn't he take? I mean, if it was kind of coming down to it and getting sloppy and all of that, it's hard to say. But
and we break down the fact that it's in a situation where you think, okay, maybe he doesn't have any people at his disposal. But when they raided into the factory, they showed to the factory workers, I'm going to call them factory workers, but they pulled guns and were shooting back at the Nazis.
Oh, that is true.
So that's a little surprising.
They were definitely, okay.
They are in the know.
Definitely in the know.
And they're working at their station. Like, when I go to work, I don't have a gun behind my computer, you know?
Why not? What?
Yeah, I know. I'm not concerned.
That's because it's 2015 and we won.
See, we won. Allies.
This
Go
was
Allies.
the Grand Reich, maybe.
You're like, just in case, my boss is kind of rude. But
Let me just so pushing the story along, you know, it's like it's industrial, it's dark, very, I feel like a little bit stylized. Some people saw the trailer and they thought it was a movie, in talking to people before coming on tonight, because of, I think, that kind of stylized look. And then it opens up to this peaceful scene of the woman, of Juliana. They say it, I wrote it down.
She's doing a little Aikido.
Aikido. Is that how you say it? Yeah. So this is, you know, obviously a Japanese
occupied area.
You know, so I thought that was a very interesting, because it was so bright and quiet, that first scene of her and on her face, and I'm just like, it was so intentional that they were changing the tone and like transitioning into like the next part.
I really liked that, because it was jarring.
Yes.
It's like you've seen all of this heavy industrial stuff, and it's like a gunfight inside of a steel warehouse where they make coffee pots and other random stuff. I guess.
Coffee pots,
Yeah, and then all of a sudden it's just like stark, quiet, zen, and it's this meditative combat dance. Well, it's this gorgeous thing, and we immediately get a taste of sort of the despairing cultures, like the Japanese states versus the German controlled part of the country, how different the culture is there, and how much Japanese culture has pervaded into the western seaboard.
I think that like you were saying earlier, how jarring it was. I think how intentional they were in the production standpoint of making her so lit. 'Cause that's the first time we're introduced to her as the protagonist, really, in a positive light. Is they brought up the lighting on that scene, and it's also integrated with her working with the Japanese in the scene. And later we find out that there's a little bit of a hostility between the two parties because they're worried about what's going to happen if the Fuhrer passes. And which I can't believe I just said that in such a polite way. You know, like, oh no, I'll send flowers. Like, I never thought those words come out. But
the fear is that it's going to launch this world. It's sort of this tentative piece. It's going to launch them into another huge world combat, because it's not there's no real long-term plan. It seems like they're just sort of cohabitating and occupying this territory that's clearly still resistant to them. And it's just, they're not always in agreement. And understandably, you know, I just think it's so smart that the writers went there immediately, like, oh, this is going to be a major point of contention in this season, is that now we have these two massive superpowers that maybe are sort of culturally different, or maybe they didn't always get along in really tight proximity, and now they're having to cope with
figure it out.
Yeah, because I mean, they don't exactly come from exactly the same part of the world.
Right.
Initially, it was like an alliance of convenience, almost. I think
absolutely.
And necessity.
In terms of culture, I mean, the whole German front, the build of their whole propaganda is against the culture. Like, anything different from the German culture is wrong. And they paired with somebody that has such a strong culture, and their values are so powerful. And I think we go back to that lighting scene when we see Juliana in the beginning, and how she's with the Japanese. How do you pronounce it again? I'm sorry.
Aikido.
And she's doing Aikido. It kind of pairs them together, whereas the Germans against the Japanese and Juliana as the resistance, because it's a seemingly light, aerated scene, and you're like, okay, well, maybe they're not as bad. You're still looking at them as
too.
Well, and I think that's interesting, because her mom is not happy that she's learned this Japanese art, and that's because the Japanese killed her father.
Which is totally justified.
You know, and so it's almost like this is like her way. I don't know if it's if you can't beat them, join them, because she's not part of the resistance. Yet. It's hard to say if it's even, again, it's like, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of oh my gosh, now I can't, Katniss, in Hunger Games, where it's like, it's out of this like survival or need to not let the sister, in this case, die in vain because she's already gone.
Right. Yeah, I think that we still have a lot to figure out with that character. I still don't really understand completely the journey that she's had thus far, or what's fueling her. So I think that there's still a lot, and I think they kept it that way a little bit on purpose because there's some reveals and stuff coming in the episode. But yeah, I didn't really understand, was she assimilating because the situation's better in this side of the country, or is she just kind of okay with it, or is she just this because it's also very like Japanese. I love Japanese culture. It's sort of very Japanese, that like relaxed kind of go with the flow. I don't know if I would say that point blank, but she's kind of going with the flow and doing the best with their circumstances. I'm still trying to figure out what's driving her individual decisions. I mean, her decision to like leave and to take her sister's place and go into the neutral zone. I don't know if she's earned it yet as a character for me. So I'm trying to figure it out. But I think there's more there. I think we haven't seen it yet. Yeah. But I think the first episode, I was like, wow, I'm surprised from what I've seen so far of you that you're making this choice. Like, this is sort of shocking, but not like the jarring shocking, like a little confused shocking. Yeah. But I think she had to do it. But.
For me, I feel like it comes completely. She's completely motivated by hope, as far as she sees the film. First of all, she loses her sister. So it's like, okay, what was worth dying for? From Trudy's perspective, which clearly they didn't always see eye to eye on things. And so this is her way of trying to understand, I think, who her sister was, because her sister's gone now. And so this is the only way that she can get answers from her sister, as well as the hope that watching this footage that, to her, when she's talking to her boyfriend, Frank, when he gets back, and she's explaining, like, no, this isn't just some silly movie. Like, what if this is real? Like, this is how America was before our time, right. and kind of trying to, I think, hold on to the fact that life could exist in their lifetime, because that means that they don't have to keep it a secret that her boyfriend, future husband, is a Jew and from that lineage, and that their kids and all that are going to be in danger if the Germans find out that that's the lineage that he comes from.
Right. Well, I think that brings us to a next sort of really good point, which is that this footage is nuts. Like, this was the biggest thing that I was not expecting that I saw. Like, probably the biggest thing until the very end of the first episode. I did not see that coming. What is this footage that we have that shows the Allies winning the war? We see the sort of the celebration, and I forget her boyfriend's name. Frank. Frank's stance was that this was not a real footage. It was a movie.
Yeah, it was silly.
A movie made by the man in the high castle, who's still this ominous enigma somewhere in the neutral states, I think. I'm not sure. But to me, it's like he doesn't have the resources to make a movie like this.
The production value,
who would?
In the neutral states, like, we saw scenes that just couldn't have taken place there in my mind. Did this I guess this happened? Is this some sort of like alternate universe? Or
and that's the question, I think.
Yeah,
and
like, this is crazy.
Somewhat motivating, I think, for her. That's where it's like, I've got to figure out who's, is this real? Is this fake? Who's creating this? Where is this coming from? And why was my sister a part of it?
Right, it's motivating to me. It's the most interesting thing I saw on the episode, for sure.
What I really liked about the films in general, like the film canisters across the reels, and every time they showed it, everybody was very protective of it, regardless of what it was. And it's, even when she was carrying it in her purse, and he looked down, the gentleman looked down
little
at it,
T-man,
and he looks down at it, and like she hides it. And it's a situation where, why would you feel if somebody saw you with a film canister that you would need to hide it? Because if you just had it, if I'm walking on the street with a DVD, no one's going to say anything. But the fact is, like, having a film in itself, she was concerned about, and holding it close to her made it seem like just not only suspicious, but
it was
or
really
whether
suspicious.
maybe film reels in themselves are negative to have. I mean, the one that she swapped it out with was Popeye, which was shocking because Popeye in itself is based on an American sailor.
Yeah, it seems very like U.S. patriotic in a way that cartoon does.
And you would think that
wouldn't be allowed.
I mean, granted, it's going to be better because it's more generic, which I thought that was smart for her to even think of. Yeah.
Right. Well, I agree with that. I agree that it's still it's probably better. But to me, it's
still Popeye.
To me, like what that tells me from a storytelling perspective is that films are somehow still okay.
Yeah.
Because Frank put up a big stink sort of about these films, obviously, but it didn't. If he was that worried about those, it feels like he would have previously been worried about this Popeye film, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like they were the kind of couple that kept contraband like laying around. The living
definitely
room.
not the way he acted when she showed him. Yeah, or he walked in on it, and I was surprised. I mean, I don't know if I was watching something like that. I don't care who I live with. I would be a little bit more at odds when somebody walks in the room. You know what I mean?
True.
Like when he came home, she wasn't.
She didn't
just
even
like
turn her
yeah,
head.
she just kind of like was watching, kind of like
too.
acknowledging he was there, and I was like, I would be freaking out. I mean,
especially if that's the first time you've seen that.
No matter who it was, even if that's the same thing that happened every day at that time, he came home and he's the only one you ever expect. I would still be a little bit
apprehensive when you hear that door click. I think that just goes to speak to her character though in general, and like what motivates her. We were talking earlier about how it's kind of convoluted as to what her purpose is and what her driving force is, but I think they gave us a lot of cues with just based on her relationship with him. Like at first I wrote down when they were in the bar, I wasn't really sure what their relationship was yet. Like I knew there was kind of a closeness, but I wasn't sure whether it was a brother or a cousin or something like that. And then once the friend comes in and he's like, oh, lovebirds. And you're like, okay, well, it's clear, but she still feels a little chafed when it comes. She's not very hands-on, emotional, like lovey-dovey.
Right.
And then she's very sort of like blasé almost in a way. And
she's got a wall up.
I'm sure she's been through some stuff. You know what I mean?
Well,
like
they mentioned the accident. She wanted maybe she needs to exercise after the accident. So maybe that's what's driving her and has made her callous. Something traumatic happened in her life.
Could be.
And that's what's causing her to be like, okay, well, time for me to find out who I am because something else was holding her back.
Yeah. There's still so much to learn about her.
And they go back and forth about this whole film, and she leads Frank to believe that she's going to go turn it in. And do you think in that time frame that she the whole time knew she was going to go? When she found the bus ticket and and she knowingly lied, or do you think that there was a point where like she really was planning on turning it in and she felt like she needed to do it on her own, and then it changed? Like she didn't know she was lying to him. No. What do you think?
I think that there was a point in time where she was maybe not sure. I don't even know about that because I think pretty much from the point that her sister died, it was set in stone that she was going to do this. But I think by the time that she told him that she was going to go to turn it in, she definitely knew. Like she definitely made the decision at that point and was just trying to
waiting for him to leave.
Him. I don't know. Do you feel differently?
Well, no, I feel the same way because the way that she took the necklace off and she's like, that's clearly a symbol of their love for one another. And regardless, if you know that you're going against that, I think that was more of a savior for him. I'm taking this off. I don't want the connection between the two of us because she was going to go do something. Because why else if you love somebody, you're not going to take off the one thing that when you're going to danger that reminds you of them.
I didn't even think of it that way. I thought it was her way of like saying goodbye. Like letting him know she left.
Yeah.
That left nothing to question, like where, like was she just down the street?
That's what I thought initially too, was that because that way to me it was like he would know that she decided to leave. It's not like she had been like kidnapped or something, or just didn't make it home from work. Like she left that there so that he knew that she had made the choice.
Probably both. Yeah.
But I think that especially when he starts kind of like defending her to the authorities, the Japanese authorities that come in later, I think that maybe it was also sort of like, I'm still with you, or I still love you.
Yeah.
Like we're still.
I didn't leave you.
Yeah, I didn't leave you. I left because I had to do this sort of thing. Because he started defending her. So it seems like I definitely don't think that she just like left him.
No.
I think that's still going to be an ongoing sort of, because they missed that phone call. I don't know. We have to see. There's still a lot. That was sort of just an introduction. This episode was a lot of introduction. Rightfully so.
But I think it's a little confusing. The same flip of the coin is that she. Like her half sister dies, and the emotional reaction is so limited when she sees her sister laying dead in the street.
Abnormally small.
Like if I saw a stranger in that same situation, I'd be like, "Oh my god!" I'd be like, and then they would look over and like try to run away.
I would be more afraid of the authorities that were still standing over the body, and I would be more distraught. I also feel like the sister's death. That's probably why I'm a little like, I'm not sure we earned this decision to go to the neutral states, because the sister's death and wanting to figure out what she died for, to me, that's the driving factor.
Yeah.
And the actual death scene, or the fallout from the death scene, was so overshadowed by this discovery of these movies of the Allies winning the war, that that few minutes of the episode was the one that I was that was really the few minutes that I was like, this could have been, we maybe should have structured this a little bit differently. I get it, I get all of the plot points that we hit, but I would have loved to have seen that death be more significant, or at least as significant as it is in the story, because that seems to be, unless we have a different
So
impression,
you mean
why she's
more
going.
time spent acknowledging the loss of her sister?
Yes. You know what? I don't know if it's more like more time in between that discovery, or the fallout from that big plot point to the discovering what is actually in the film.
So to I guess go against that, or kind of challenge that.
Sure.
She sees her sister, she gets shoved this bag, and her sister runs off. And I mean, she's gonna go home, of course, because that's what you do. And she has this bag. So of course you're gonna look through the bag that your sister shoved in your face before she got shot. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? Time wise, that would be the first thing that I would do if I got home and I found a film that had some name I'm not familiar with on it and all of that.
I think it's just in the situation, exactly what you were saying in terms of how they didn't really, let it breathe in the depth of the film. I think it's maybe the intention was to focus on the situation where this film's magnitude and the meaning of this film overcasts relative dying. Because even when Frank came home, she didn't open with, "Oh, by the way, my sister's dead."
Right.
It was an afterthought. It's true.
She's like,
check
"Yo,
this movie out."
check out this movie." And they watch the movie,
right?
And then she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, Trudy's dead." And he's like, "Oh." And it's such a casual thing. So is death so prevalent?
To that point, though, I would say, they have grown up around death in a way that we will hopefully never understand,
Yeah, sure. That's
on
a
our
good
own
point,
soil.
actually.
And, I watch things like Game of Thrones, or, maybe this as the season progresses, but life is just not looked at the same way that we look at it today because of that. It's not, we don't kill people to the death for looking at our cousin, the wrong way, or for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The just death.
Hair trigger is a little bit.
Yeah. Life
for sure.
is respected more today, and I think part of that is we also have medicine and different things that help keep us alive. We're living longer. We're living arguably fuller lives. Experiencing more things because of the technology and medicine that we have today. And we don't have war on our soil the way they did.
Right. This doesn't take place in modern day, though.
No,
right?
this is in 62.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is relatively quickly after the war. So.
Yeah, okay.
But the value of life is explained, I think, incredibly clearly when Joe is talking with the police officer on the side of the road, and he's like, "Oh, what's this?" And it looks more like a mist or an ash, and it's almost snowing, and he's like, "Oh, well, they cremate on Tuesdays. They cremate the cripples and the mentally handicapped, and and the drags on society." And so,
and he said it so casually.
It's a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah,
it's like
this is what's on Tuesdays.
It was a Tuesday. I think that's so classic. It was a Tuesday. Oh, it's body snow. This happens on Tuesdays. It's the hospital.
I love discount at Hometown Buffet. It's
exactly.
like, okay, well, just bring out your wipers. It's gonna be cloudy out.
With a side of snow ash.
Yeah, which is terrible.
Yummy cripple ash. Oh, that's awful.
But he didn't think it was super weird either. It wasn't.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We learn later that he seems to probably be a bit more maybe jaded than most, or at least in it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I loved so much about that scene is that the cop was, he's now working for the German police force.
Yeah,
he's a veteran and fought
for the Americans.
Yeah, fought for the American side of the war, and sort of just the internal pull that creates, and now he's just like, it's cremated bodies, and it's just so.
And probably in his 20s when he was fighting.
Yeah.
Just based on his age, where he was at. So it's a lot of these guys were in their most prideful state of being, and as young and strong as they're going to be. And so if you can turn people that have that strong of a will and they're fighting for their country, and you can still make them flip like that,
break them,
and not only work but enforce for the enemy. It just shows the level of emotional and mental warfare that they also played. It wasn't just we beat you, we destroyed you, broke you down, and built you up to be subservient to
one of us.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is, that's I couldn't even imagine a society to live in like that, where it's just perpetually
I can't either,
devastating.
man. I feel like we would join the resistance.
Yeah,
I feel like that's what we would do.
Yeah.
I would like to think.
Yeah, right? We would all like to think.
Find the man in the
so
high
we've
castle.
talked about kind of Joe coming to the neutral zone and his journey. Let's talk about Juliana and the bus. And she meets, I wrote her name down, Kate, I think her name was. Katie Owens. The only other white girl on the bus.
Right, the bus
and
girl,
she makes a point of that.
Yeah.
And then bus stops pretty quick. Katie is off with Juliana's bag.
Right.
Do you think that's going to come back?
Well, and I feel like the actress in herself is renowned enough where there's no way they'll just get
That was her only part?
Just from a
Yeah.
production standpoint, you wouldn't invest in an actor of that magnitude just to be like, okay, goodbye. It's not Game of Thrones where, thousands of them come on and you're just cookies. So I think that she's definitely going to be reintroduced. I think it's going to open up. That was our first little taste of the Wild West of the neutral zone, where everyone, it's nothing dramatic, but it's still look, you just got robbed. Like you've been in the neutral zone for 20, 30 minutes and you've gotten robbed. So, and it's from a sweet lady. So you're thinking,
Or so you thought.
yeah,
Right,
it's
the
unexpected.
first person that you decided to trust betrayed you in the neutral. Well, in the neutral state.
Yeah,
This is how it
Great
is.
lesson. Which it's a good lesson. It's a good teaser for us as to what's to come in the neutral zone, where everything may not be as it seems. It's not as savory as she was hoping.
Yeah.
Almost nothing has been as it seems thus far
true, yeah.
in the neutral state. It's been very sort of convoluted as far as who people are and what their motives are. I don't know. Should we talk about the flip?
Oh, and towards that. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I would like to get to the flip. What got Joe to that point, but when he was driving out and constantly he was asking what's in the truck, and he's like,
Right.
"No, I'm not. You don't need to worry about what's in the truck.
Yeah.
Just drive the truck." But then on the other side, Oberfuhren, is that how we decided?
Obergruppenführer.
Obergruppenführer.
Yes. That's how I would say it.
Obergruppenführer.
He mentioned numerous times that he already knew what the package was. Okay, so he's like, we know what they're transporting, we know where they're transporting it to, and then when you have Joe and he seems to not know what it is. So if he was the inside guy, how could he?
It seems
How could
like
he ever feel that information prior when he just is finding out about it?
that's the thing. I'm not sure. It's not 100% clear when he actually does discover the film canister that he had no idea that that's what it was. But
Or he just found it knowing it.
or just found it now.
Gotcha.
But I also kind of like that, and I kind of think that maybe that is the case, that he didn't know. Now, whether or not that speaks to his truthful place as like an inside guy or not, I don't know if it really matters, because it's also possible that he's just an agent that wasn't informed specifically as to what the package is. He just knew he had to do something with it. And maybe meet this woman there, or maybe meet someone that's trying to meet both of these people there, or
It's unclear,
who knows?
because of that. Because as far as Trudy would have known, or whoever's supposed to meet Trudy and Joe, maybe that is the same person, because they are both resistance. Or
right. Well,
to this point, I mean,
they're carrying the same film.
yes, yes.
The two copies of the same film, which I'm like, was this just like insurance? Like you needed to get this film to the neutral zone, or is this some sort of like ticket?
Right.
Or I still don't understand
That's
the
true.
purpose
Two
of
films
the,
going
of
to the
film
same
canister.
location at the same.
Yeah, like is it just like hedging your bets, or do they need both of these, or is this, and probably what it's significant of something, or shows significance of something deeper going on,
Potentially a decoy, or just I think the insurance
or just like
factor.
whether or not they could get it there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So
Something.
maybe it's not as big of a thing, but it's like if we can get this there undetected,
Right.
then we can get the real
whatever else is going
needs
on.
to have happen.
And do you think a truck, though, out of all things that you were going to use to transport a package from New York into the neutral zone, they decided a truck full of cargo, and it's something that's like, okay, they can. To me, that looks the most suspicious. If I'm thinking somebody's going to be smuggling something, and I see a cargo truck go by, I'm like, okay, well that's going to be the guy who may be carrying it. He's used to doing the long hauls. For something as small as a canister, you think that a guy on a motorcycle, anything, they're not going to pull out the film and check it to see.
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah, what it is at that level, frame by frame. So
Right.
But his had the actual name, whereas hers was
Popeye.
switched.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I think I loved that choice, just because it's sort of like they'll find you.
Yeah.
Like the closer you get, the safer you are, sort of thing. It's like you take this big this big truck transporting all of these coffee pots or teapots, coffee
Coffee
right?
makers,
All of these
yeah.
coffee makers, and of course the guards are going to be interested in the coffee makers. They're gonna be, there's something in here. What are you trying to smuggle? What are you trying to smuggle? They're not going to check under that little hidden compartment where you're carrying a film canister wrapped in newspaper. Like, they're not going to see that. They're going to be tearing up the coffee makers, and then you're going to make it through.
Almost like a little decoy in the truck, making it look suspicious.
Exactly, making it look suspicious, and then they're just like, it's a waste of time. There's nothing here, sort of to distract.
And the "I told you so" kind of a thing coming from the driver.
Yeah,
like, I told you all I had
it's just coffee makers. I think it's great. I also think that they probably, at least I would have, were I like the Resistance people that sent him on the mission, not knowing that he's maybe a double agent or anything,
right?
Like, just being like, we're gonna send this guy. I would definitely have told him that there was just coffee makers in the back, because if I was that driver and I pull up to a road stop and people start tearing through the coffee makers and I know I'm smuggling something but I don't know what it is, I would be freaking out.
But
I probably wouldn't have even pulled up.
But it's one of those things where you're not driving coffee makers to the neutral zone where they're giving you pills to stay awake and don't stop. You know what I mean? Like, you've got something besides coffee makers.
But that's why,
no matter
why
who
they
you
tell
are.
him so that he would know that it was safe to let them search it, is my thing. Because,
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because if I was driving that and they were like, can we search the back? I would be like, I'm going to get killed if you search the back.
Yeah.
And probably
something.
I see what you're saying.
I would have just wanted the assurance that, like, if they search it, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But at the same time, like, maybe he wouldn't have. Like, if they searched it, maybe they would look underneath. You know what I mean? At that
true.
point, who knows? But
that's true. I would just want to inform my Resistance operative a little bit better.
Oh yeah,
maybe,
absolutely.
And maybe he would have. Maybe that was part of the vetting.
That's true.
Or, you know what I mean?
A little rushed.
He wasn't letting him know because he didn't know if he could trust him.
Yeah.
And then when whoever was supposed to meet him in the neutral zone found him, he would kind of be able to vet him further and figure out whether or not he could let him know that what he brought him was this canister or whatever. But I want to talk about, we're kind of running out of time. I want to talk about Mr. Warren. So he's now getting beaten.
I think presumably dead at this
by the
point.
end, yeah. But I thought it was interesting that, so let's talk about what you want to talk about. We find out that Joe goes to make that phone call, and it reveals that he actually is not part of the Resistance. And so they've known all along, that this truck was going, and supposedly they know that it had the canister on it, and they continue to beat to death Mr. Warren, because then the Resistance will think, he didn't talk.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's one of those where I'm like, man, I would be the worst person. Like, I'd be the worst at like this stuff, because
espionage is difficult.
Yeah, I mean, because I would never think about that. I mean, but then I think about writers, but that's a whole other topic. Like, how writers can come up with all this kind of stuff. Granted, this is a book, and this guy that wrote the book actually, I mean, this book was written in 62. So he lived through World War II, and then wrote this like alternate history, kind of semi in real time.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting, the setting going back now, because it's like, not only is this a period piece in that it's the 60s, but it's the 60s on top of this other huge historical, like the butterfly effect is taking place, where this other huge historical outcome. It's a totally different 60s than even the 60s were, but yet it's still the 60s. I just think it's so cool, and I think it's really well done so far, how they're separating all these things out and still making it a period piece, but not one that we're familiar with. Sort of like a spin-off world.
Which I think is like going to what you said in terms of like writing that book in the 60s and how he lived through World War II. And same as him living the 60s. I couldn't imagine a situation as a writer where I'm sitting there and I'm going to write a book about something that everybody has gone through that's been so dramatic. And I'm going to be like, well, I'm writing the opposite side, guys.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to write what happens with the Nazis one. People were like, man, what? Like, what are you writing? Like, he had to get a lot of flack for that.
You think about it, and I guess that's maybe kind of in a weird way what we're watching is, had his book been
accurate
reality, nobody would have been writing the book he wrote about America winning, which is, I guess, kind of the films. The little canister is the book of the alternate, you know what I'm saying?
Right. It's like the
or is it the reality? So
it's
just kind of an interesting, like, hey guys, I live in America, we won, so I can write a book about what if Hitler
didn't.
you know what I mean?
That's really cool.
Yes.
And
super
so
meta.
That's the nugget of the episode to me. That's the nugget of the whole show right now. That's so cool. Yeah, he kind of like put the inverse of the thing
Good what he
It's
did.
a good pilot.
So,
In the
Mr. Phillip.
in the situation where you mentioned that the Nazis dropped the hydrogen bomb, and it's been a recurring theme throughout, is they've dropped it once, they'll drop it again.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's been the big fear.
On Washington.
On Washington.
DC,
And
yeah.
the fear of them dropping the bomb is, did they actually drop the bomb? Because if these films they're showing, the actual clips are from a victory, which it was what, victory in Japan Day, V-Day.
Yeah, I think it's footage from the actual
It's where they raised the
victory
flag on Iwo
celebration.
Jima.
Yeah.
And if that footage exists, that means that the Americans did drop the bomb first. So that whole dropping of the bomb thing, if that's being masked up and the Nazis never dropped the bomb and the Americans did, whoever that PR company is amazing.
Right.
Firstly.
Exactly. Like, how is this? So either.
Well, or did they not?
Exactly.
Do you know what I
Did they
mean?
not drop it at all?
Or only America did.
Yeah. It's either
In
it's
this
either,
reality.
It's either the truth is that America lost, or they actually won, and somehow we've ended up still in the situation, whether it's like government secrecy or something
Yeah.
else going on, but somehow like this has been fabricated. Or like it's something crazy and it's like this is an alternate universe.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
there's some sort of other, like the man in the high castle has a portal to the other
Oh,
side.
gosh. Oh, my gosh.
Like we're like a sort of what is it, Schrodinger's cat? Like who won the war? Like
I mean,
until you open up the film canister, you don't know whether the
It's open to that because of the parallels of how the similarities between our reality and in the book, what you can project and extrapolate all of the things that are happening, everything that we've seen. There's a situation where you're like, that's realistic. Had we lost? They haven't really gone into an extent of, come on,
That couldn't have
that's
happened.
not how it would go.
Yeah,
So everything
yeah.
is such the basis of reality that it makes it difficult to really extrapolate these characters or the scenes, what's going to happen when it's such an enigma of the film. And okay, what is reality? Is it just great PR and campaigning, or is there something that it's just the new generation's been brainwashed, which I guess could be
Right.
feasible since they
Yeah.
run the country.
It
What
also
they teach
sounds
them, what they show them.
Sounds very Nazi, you know.
Super Nazi. Yeah.
Sounds real Nazi.
Yeah.
I could believe it.
It would happen that way if
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
is
The
case.
meanest thing you can imagine.
Let's get back to Juliana. So she's now in the neutral zone. She's taken a job. So it sounds like she's going to stay a while. She's met Joe.
She's met Joe.
See, and I feel like this is
Who bought her
the
a cup of
necklace
Joe.
thing, right? Hey,
Or tea,
the
I'm
necklace.
not
So
sure.
she gives the necklace. I thought of it as a goodbye, like kind of, and I thought she was doing that to be somewhat merciful towards Frank, like. I don't know what's gonna happen, so like I'm saying goodbye because like I may die on this, like you may never see me again, and just along with the intent, like then he knows she did leave on this bus ticket, but
Yeah.
so now she's met Joe, and they spent some time together.
They share a Fanta, I think.
Orange
I'm not
Fanta.
sure.
Yeah.
Don't you want to?
They have like a little moment and sort of learn a little bit about each other, I guess. It's really casual. It's the very last thing that we see.
And the trust thing, I think.
Yeah, so it seems like she trusts him. I mean, she's alone in the neutral state. She couldn't afford to buy whatever it was that she bought at the diner, and he comes up and pays. She's still standoffish, of course,
Yeah.
but like it's kind of charming in a way, I guess. And I think that obviously she would want to buy into it because she's alone.
Yeah.
So you think she'd be a little sheltered still, considering like less than a day ago she just got
Yeah.
robbed the second she entered the neutral zone. Now
Right.
she's sharing a Fanta, which I wouldn't share a drink with a stranger ever. And like she's sharing a drink on the boulevard with a guy while a truck's being searched down the road. Like it's a very severe situation to be as calm and peaceful as they're outside
They're
like a
very
casual
calm.
day. Yeah.
It's
and
super
I
calm
think
and
that
peaceful.
goes back to her training with the
That's true.
Aikido.
That may be true. I think that's definitely sort of a big part of her character.
That I think was kind of foreshadowed. You know, like the
Yeah.
fact that she's been training in this so she can, what was it, defend herself against a man like twice her strength or size or whatever.
Right, I'm glad
you
they
know,
set that up.
all of those little things, you know, like it's no accident that she's the one that ends up going to the
Yeah.
neutral zone, and she's the one that had studied this art, and you know,
She's not porcelain. That's the
Right.
everyone
Right.
looks at it. She looks dainty. She looks like a fragile girl, but she's very strong-willed in the sense that even if she's not going to mention her half sister passing away, it's like she's obviously knows how to
she's-
control her emotions.
she's being Trudy.
Yeah.
As far, you know what I mean? So
Oh,
she can't
sister
talk about her
lives on
sister being
inside her.
dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, any last thoughts about the episode before we do some predictions?
I need to see more. I mean, I think there's so much yet to explore. I think the art was great. Like the art department's work was fantastic. The like all of the visuals were spot on, and the story's interesting. And there's so much that's been set up, and we just need to see how it falls into place. I just need to see more.
And it's super intriguing, especially when you have numerous directors on a series, because you get those different lights and those different styles of cinematography, which is great. Because in a situation where it's such an epic film. I think it's film,
Yeah,
an
yeah.
epic
Like a
show
film.
that
It does.
it genuinely feels like a film. So it's exciting to be able to see what's going to be coming next when you know there's going to be more action. You know there's going to be a lot more controversy because everyone's kind of just creeping towards each other. I mean, we started on the East Coast and the West Coast, and somehow we ended in the neutral zone in the center. So it's just nice to see that everything's converging together.
Right.
Characters are being unfolded a little bit, and you're going to get to see those different styles throughout the next couple episodes, all the way to the end of the series.
And what an intense pilot that we saw both sides and then the middle in one
Yeah.
episode, in
And
the first
so
episode.
keep in mind too, this pilot came out in January.
Right.
Right. So we've been waiting a long time
Right.
for the rest of the season to come out, and it
Sure.
is. I haven't binge watched. I've been refraining
Right.
because
That's the goal.
I
I
want
can't
to.
because I wouldn't be able to talk about it.
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
I would skip ahead
Yeah.
every
So
episode.
what's your
objective.
prediction for next week? What do you think we're going to see in the next episode?
I think that I think in the next 2 episodes we're going to meet or at least figure out who the man in the high castle is.
Oh,
That's what I
Okay.
think.
What do you think?
I think that Joe and himself, I think we're going to get some wavering in him as a person. I think that we're going to see who he is, and now that it was revealed that he's an agent from the Nazis, but I genuinely think that he's going to be one of the characters that has that moral compass that isn't straight Nazi. He's got a little
that
American
was
in him.
mine.
Oh, I just swooped
Yes,
yours?
you swooped mine.
So then it's obviously a good prediction.
Yeah, right. Well,
Where were you on that one?
See, I don't know. I mean, I can kind of go either way. I don't want to make a prediction about Joe yet because I'm still kind of reeling from the shift. Because I thought that I was like, I thought it was a little too put together. And when he shot the German officer, so it kind of also made me be like, or I don't know if he was an
trained.
officer, but I was like, okay, he can shoot, but he's also not a Nazi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then now he is.
Right. And so
I
that's
kinda
why the
think
switch
that-
too, I think,
Yeah.
as he starts being somewhat exposed to this resistance ideal and what that all is, he starts to kind of waver and then maybe still continues to play double agent but like switches sides. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
I don't know.
Tell us what you guys think out there. Tell us what you think about the show, Man in the High Castle. Tell us what you think about the after show, what your predictions are. You can find us all on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram.
All over social medias.
Yes. And you can find the show on iTunes. So go to iTunes, download the show, and rate it 5 stars if you like it. I'm your host, Courtney Henderson. I can be found at COUHEN.
My name is Keith W. Black. You can find me at Keith W. Black on the internet, on Instagram, Twitter, email.
And I'm Taylor Bolt. You can find me on Instagram at tbolt, that's BOLDT, or on Twitter at taybolt, also BOLDT.
There you go.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys, very much. Oh, fun. I think that Joe and Juliana, future love romance, putting it out there right now.
Oh, definitely.
But I don't know if it's gonna be two-sided. I think he might just be kind of trying to use her.
You think?
At first, at least.
They're just both
We'll
too
have to see
pretty.
how it
It's going to
works
happen.
out.
You can't
that
not
truck
write that.
scene. Yeah,
Yeah, they're going to have a hand on the shifter.
Save it for next week,
We
guys.
got more to come.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll catch you next time.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.